Why hello everyone and welcome to our video lesson on the topic of transport systems. So in the previous lessons, we've looked at the different types of processes that take place in transport. We've learned about diffusion, we've learned about osmosis. And in the last lesson, we looked more closely at how water and mineral salts are absorbed by the roots. And we saw how that is an example of osmosis in the case of water and diffusion in the case of mineral salts. Now in this lesson, we're going to turn our attention to the leaves. And we're going to look at what kind of processes take place in the leaves. More specifically, we'll look at gas exchange, the exchange of different gases in the leaf. And we'll see how this is an example of diffusion. Alright, so let's go along and see this. Now, many of you have already seen this picture in our class. There's a picture of something that looks very alien-like, and most of you managed to guess that it is actually the stomata, the openings or pores in the leaf. Now, from your primary school, you would have learned that leaves have stomata for gas exchange. And these stomata are pores in the leaf usually found on the lower surface of the leaf, right? More stomata are usually on the lower surface than the upper surface. And when we look closer at the structure of the stomata, we saw that every stoma is surrounded by two guard cells. And these guard cells can actually control the size of the stoma. So when the guard cells are turgid and expanded, the stoma is open, quite large. And when the guard cells are flaccid, then the stoma closes up. And this prevents gases from moving in and out of the leaf. So by controlling the size of the stoma, we can control how much gas moves between the environment and the inside of the leaf. So let's take a closer look at the inside of a leaf. Now, if you took a leaf like this and you cut it this way, what you will see is the cross-section of the leaf. Under a microscope, you will see many different layers of cells. Now, on the lower surface, you will see little pores, and these, of course, are your stomata. And here is an example of a stoma surrounded by guard cells. So I'm going to take a closer look at this section of the leaf. So the leaf contains many different layers of tissue. Every layer of tissue is made up of cells that look a certain way, right? There's the upper epidermis, something called the palisade layer. You do not need to know this at Sec 2. However, those of you who are interested will go on to learn about this in Sec 3. What's important for you to recognize for now is where are the stomata and guard cells. And hopefully you're able to spot it here. That there's an opening, the stomata, the stoma in this case because it's just one, and the guard cells which surround it. So here's where we ended off in class, where we looked at the cross-section of the leaf. And we saw that there is the upper side of the leaf, the upper surface, and the lower side, lower surface of the leaf. And here is our stoma, the guard cells that surround the stoma. And I asked you to notice, what do you notice about the inside of the leaf? And you can see that in the lower half of the leaf, there are many large air spaces. And these air spaces allow for gases to move in and out of the leaf easily. It allows for the gases to circulate and to move to different parts of the leaf quite rapidly. So how do plants exchange gases with their environment? Well, to explore this question, we'll look at two gases. The first gas we'll look at is carbon dioxide, CO2, which we know carbon dioxide is required for photosynthesis, and therefore carbon dioxide is usually taken in to the leaf. The second gas we'll look at is oxygen, O2, and we know that oxygen is produced during photosynthesis, so usually oxygen will be given off and move from inside the leaf to out of the leaf. So let's begin with carbon dioxide. Now, taking a look at this diagram here, ask yourself, is carbon dioxide concentration usually higher inside or outside the leaf? And the answer is that carbon dioxide concentration is usually lower inside the leaf compared to outside the leaf. Now, why is it lower inside the leaf? Because carbon dioxide is constantly being used by leaf cells. It's constantly being taken into the leaf cells to be used for photosynthesis. So the concentration of carbon dioxide in these air spaces here will be quite low compared to outside the leaf, where carbon dioxide concentration is relatively higher. So carbon dioxide will move into the leaf by diffusion. As such, carbon dioxide diffuses from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Now let's talk about oxygen. So is the concentration of oxygen higher inside or outside the leaf? Think about what the leaf is doing. It's carrying out photosynthesis. And as a result, oxygen is constantly being produced by the cells of the leaf. So this results in a relatively high concentration of oxygen compared to outside the leaf, where the concentration of oxygen is relatively lower. Right? This word relatively is very helpful. It means in comparison to. So concentration is relatively lower on the outside compared to the inside. Concentration of oxygen is higher inside the leaf compared to outside the leaf. And as a result, oxygen will move out of the leaf by diffusion. As such, oxygen moves out by diffusion. So you need to know how to describe the movement of gases in and out of a plant by using the concept of diffusion and the difference in concentration. Now finally, we'll be looking at the example of water vapor. This is water in the gaseous form, alright? So in a gas form. And this is actually extra, but I think it's very helpful to think about it, and it'll help you for the next part. Think about, is the concentration of water vapor higher inside the leaf or outside the leaf? Well, the answer is that it's usually higher inside the leaf compared to outside the leaf. And the reason for this is because the leaf cells are constantly producing water, right, due to a process called respiration, which you will learn about in your chemistry class. Right, and there's high amount of water vapor, concentration of water vapor inside the leaf compared to outside the leaf. Again, relatively. So water vapor then moves out of the leaf by diffusion. As such, water vapor, which is a gas, moves out by diffusion. And this process has a special name. The diffusion of water vapor out of the leaf is called transpiration, right? A bit like your perspiration, sweating, but we call it transpiration in plants. Now you might be wondering to yourself, why is it not osmosis? I mean, this is water moving, right? So why is it not moving by osmosis? Why is it that water vapor is moving by diffusion? Now the simple answer is that osmosis only applies to water in liquid state. In this case, water vapor is water in gaseous state. So water in gaseous state moves by diffusion, not by osmosis. So here's the quick check for that. Is it true or false? Does water vapor move out of the leaf by osmosis? And the answer is false. Right? Water vapor moves out of the leaf by diffusion. Right, so we're coming to the end of our video. We've already looked at how water and mineral salts are absorbed by the roots. We've looked at what happens in the leaves, diffusion of gases in and out of the leaf. Now, one question remains. How is water transported up the xylem tissue in the stem? How does water move from the roots all the way up to the leaves? To discover the answer, we need to go back to what we have learned. Right, we've seen that water is absorbed into the roots by osmosis. And we've seen that water vapor moves out of the leaves by transpiration, right, which is a type of diffusion. So there's water vapor moving out. Water in a gas state. There's water moving into the leaves, into the roots and out of the leaves by transpiration. So what happens in between? Well, what happens in between is this process called transpiration pool. So transpiration in the leaves creates a suction force called transpiration pool, which moves water up the xylem tissue in the stem. You can think about it like a straw. So water is kind of leaving the leaves, at the leaves up here, so water moves out, and like sucking a straw, it causes water to be moved up the xylem tissue. So this transpiration creates a suction force called transpiration pool, pulling water up the stem in the xylem tissue, and the water moves from the roots into the stem, pulled up by transpiration pool to the leaves. Okay, so you just need to know what this thing is called, this transpiration pool, which moves water up the stem. Alright, that's the end for this video. Just a note that transpiration pool only applies to plants with xylem. Alright, there are some more primitive plants like moss. There's some mosses where water moves up their stem simply by osmosis. It doesn't move up by transpiration pool because there's no xylem in the moss. So that process would just be osmosis. Okay, so that's the end for the video. If you have any questions, you can ask more on Thursday.